What's up guys, Barry here with another machine tutorial, and in today's video we're going to be looking at layering sounds. More specifically, how to utilize the link and zone feature within Maschine. We're going to discuss reasons as to why and when to use them, and more importantly, how to go about setting them up. Before we get started guys, I just want to mention for your convenience, down in the description, there's timestamps to each of these sections. Alright, so let's learn how to layer some sounds through the linking feature. So here's a kick, snare, and hat for the beat that we just heard. First, let's look at the kick drum. So the kick contains 3 samples. First sample for attack, second sample for some body, and the third kick, it had some nice vinyl crackle noise at the end. So I just cut it up and took that tail end. So how do we go about linking these sounds? So you're going to enter pad mode, and using knob number 3 on your hardware, you're going to select the group that you want to use to connect these 3 sounds. You also have 2 link modes. So send will trigger all of the samples in the group, receive will allow you to trigger that sample individually. So quickly moving on to the snare drum, the snare sound has 2 samples in it, both where I alter the start and end points to get my desired sound. In terms of linking the snares, we know that the kicks were in link group 1, therefore we're going to put the snares in link group 2. Lastly, let's look at the 3 layers used for my hi-hat sound. So the first sound's actually a kick drum that I ran through a high-pass filter. The second layer is a pitched down ride cymbal. And this third sound was a pretty long percussive Foley noise. So I altered its start and end points to get some of that texture. Lastly, we're going to link them to link group 3 to finish off my lo-fi hi-hat layer. And you'll notice guys that all of the layers play a different role in that final sound, whether it be for attack, body, or for some texture. I challenge you guys not to layer for the sake of layering, but to layer to create something new and something your own. The biggest advantage that you have in terms of using the link feature versus the zone feature in terms of layering is the fact that you can use effects for each individual sound. So now if I want to add a compressor to my main snare sound, I can go ahead and do that. And if I want to add a reverb to my second snare layer that's independent from that first sound, I can do that as well. So this advantage would be the main reason as to why you're using the linking feature versus using zones to layer your sounds. So that's the why. Now the when. So I would utilize the linking feature when I'm creating the beat. So during the production phase, when I have zero concern about maximizing my 16 pads, when I have zero concerns about finger drumming, when I just want to make the best sounding beat possible. Moving on to the sample portion of this beat, let's learn how to utilize links for sounds that are not drums. The sample section contains 3 main layers: the vocal chop, these keys, and some bass. A very important feature you need to be utilizing when laying out samples like this is choke groups. Choke groups will ensure that your samples are not overlapping each other. So again, you're going to enter pad mode, and where knob 3 controlled your link group, this time knob 1 will control your choke groups. With all of the keys set to choke group 1, they will no longer overlap each other. Similar to link, there's 2 modes. Choke also has send and receive. For samples, I tend to always have it as send, but a practical application of this would be a closed hi-hat and an open hi-hat, where the closed hi-hat sends and the open hi-hat receives. For the drums, we link the individual layers to create a unique drum sound. In this scenario, we're utilizing the link feature to connect the different instruments to trigger at the same time. With that said, I still want the vocals and keys to be able to play independently from the group, so I'm going to set them to mode receive, whereas the bass is still set to send to trigger all three. For the drums, we connected all of the kick sounds, all the desired snare sounds, and all the desired hi-hat sounds together in its own link group. That wouldn't make sense for this scenario because that would just create a mess of different notes. So here we link the keys and bass that have the corresponding chords so we can trigger them accordingly. Okay, cool. So back to our drums. So on the hardware, you're going to hit sampling, followed by zone on the top to get to your zone page. So I already have my drums loaded in, but on the top right, you can toggle between the different layers of your sound. And utilizing the left and right arrow will allow you to move through the different pages of the zone window. In a future video, I'll be covering the topic of utilizing velocity to create variation in your sound, but I'll quickly show you how I use that technique in this project. So using the right arrow, you're going to go to page 5 of your zoning window, and here you'll be able to define the different velocity that you want to use to trigger your different layers. At default, your velocity is always set to a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 127, meaning regardless of how soft or how hard you hit your pad, your sample will always trigger. So here I set the minimum velocity of my second layer, so the tambourine sound, a little bit higher so it only triggers when I hit the pad harder. Do note that you can utilize this velocity technique whether you're using links or zones. Just remember that this is under the zone window. We'll move back to the sample to learn more about utilizing zones for layering. For this example, we'll add bass to the keys. So select the pad that you want to add a layer to, press sampling, and on the top, the fourth button, you'll hit zone, followed by add, which will bring you to your library browsing window. And from there, you can go ahead and find the next layer to your sound. So in this case, we're going to find the bass. So once you find your sound, you're going to go ahead and hit load, and that'll appear in your zone window. While in the zone window, you're going to want to tune your instruments. So in this case, we're tuning the bass guitar to the keys. Now tuning your instruments isn't always as easy, but both of my samples have the root key that they're originated in. So in this case, my bass is in the key of C, and my keys is in the key of F. Therefore, I adjusted my bass up 5 semitones to get to where I needed it to be. Now we just navigate through our library to find that vocal sample. Alright, cool guys, there you go. And that is how you layer multiple instrument samples through zones inside a Maschine. In terms of why and when I would use zones when layering sounds inside a Maschine versus linking pads, the main reason is when I'm creating finger drumming routines. On the top right, I have a card linking to a video where we walk through the steps of creating a finger drumming routine. Now that we've layered up our pads through zones, we have a row that plays the bass and the keys together, as well as a row of pads that plays the keys by itself. And that, guys, is how you create layers inside a Maschine through linking your pads as well as through zones. Thank you guys so much for getting this far in the video. As always, we'll end it with a little finger drumming routine. Now, if this is a video that brought value to you, something that you enjoyed, something that you learned from, please hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Down in the comments, let me know if there's any topics you want me to cover in future videos. And of course, subscribe. Peace.